So, hello and good morning. I can't believe it's Monday. The weeks and the weekends seem to fly more quickly than I would ever hope that they do, but it is what it is. So, my name is Steve Pugh. I host a range of different podcasts on the internet. And what I tend to do as a management consultant, we have something called a growth strategy podcast where we like to introduce you to interesting guests that can help your business or career. But then, likewise, you might have seen we're doing some promotion at the moment to help promote something called Purple Sock Day, which is a fantastic initiative to help raise funds and support for disabled entrepreneurs in their communities to really help them grow, learn, and develop. And with Andrew Douglas, who was a guest 2 weeks ago now, and also a guy called David Gordon that was on last week, what we're kindly doing, and the guys, Mark included, are kindly kind of donating their time, is to both share their story and what they've done, but also these are people that are generally involved with the organisation and the initiative as well. So we're going to dig into that. But actually, you'll see the links all over the feed. But if you're interested in getting involved and supporting Purple Sock Day, maybe buying some socks or even benefiting from what they do, we'll put all the links in the chat and the stuff after we kind of go live. So Mark Esho is a really inspirational guy. I've read his bio. We were having a great chat about basketball just before we started live on the call as well, but a super interesting guy. And if you have any questions or comments or anything, if you drop them in the chat, they should pop up on my screen as well. And Mark, how's your weekend been? How's your Monday going so far?
Pretty good. Good start to the week. To the week. Over the weekend, I was in Birmingham. Watched the. We're talking about basketball, so I watched the Birmingham Rockets playing, so which was nice. Friday, tennis. Then Sunday, just resting, just chilling on Sunday. Really,
Yeah,
that's about it.
how did you get into basketball? Because I know you used to play wheelchair basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I was actually just looking for some sort of sport to keep fit. And I got introduced to it about 20 years ago because I moved
Wow.
to Leicester about 25, gosh, must have been more, look, oh gosh, put about 26, 27 years ago, I moved to Leicester. So around 20 years ago, oddish, I got introduced to wheelchair basketball, and I just loved it. I loved all the camaraderie, the team spirit,
Hmm.
the exercise. Obviously, keeping physically fit is very, very important. And I just love the fact that we could go out and just play all over the country, basically. So yeah, and I made quite a few good friends from it as well.
I think people always underestimate how physical both wheelchair basketball is, but also wheelchair rugby as well. It's, as in people often think it'll be a timid version of like the other sport, and it's not. It's brutal. It's
Absolutely intense. I can't, I've had so many injuries over the years. It's, basically being, thrown out of the chair, people bashing into you, and also it's a very, very, very physical sport.
So for people that might not know who you are, your background, that kind of thing, would you be happy? And obviously we'll go into the detail through the actual interview, but it's almost to give a quick overview on who you are, where you're from, your background, and kind of what you do now.
Okay, so gosh, right, I think I'm actually on my third life now, so, to be quite honest. I'll explain the progression. So, starting off, I was disabled with polio at the age of 5. So the last pandemic, interesting enough, was the polio virus.
Wow.
And a lot of people actually didn't know that. But by the time I'd caught it had been completely eradicated in the UK. But because my parents are of African heritage, a lot of people think I actually caught it in Nigeria,
Wow.
but I didn't. I actually caught it in Leicester. Interesting enough, I was actually one of the last people in the UK to have actually caught the polio virus, and up to today, no one knows how I managed to, as to how I managed to catch it. It's one of those insidious viruses, very similar to COVID, interesting enough, where 3 people can catch it, 2 people will be completely fine, and the other person could be
Mm.
dead for whatever reason. And that's what happened with me. So for me, I had it really bad. I was paralyzed from the neck down completely, and the doctors gave me a 10% chance of survival because that was how severe how severe the infection was. But lo and behold, and thank God, I survived. And I spent about 3 years at Leicester Royal Infirmary.
Wow.
in and out. But by the time I was 9, I was walking again. But it has left me partially paralyzed. So my left leg is dead. That's gone to heaven. My right leg has got 10%. My left arm has got 50. But a lot of people actually don't realize that. Interesting enough, because I can walk a little bit as well. I can't, obviously I can't walk
Yeah.
like normally. But looking at me, you wouldn't realize the extent of my paralysis, the paralysis, as you would put, for want of a better word. Yeah.
Because you're also a serial entrepreneur, I believe.
Yes, I am. Yes, yes. So before I went into actually setting up in business, it was mainly due to the polio. So I previously actually worked in accountancy.
Wow.
So that was my background. So I did my MBA. From my MBA, became a part qualified accountant. Then worked in accountancy for a while. But what then happened, I was there for about 7, 8 years. I then developed the late effects of polio, which is a completely different story. It's on its own. But I was kind of forced, although my employer didn't kick me out, but I just felt obliged because I didn't want to become a liability.
Can I ask
So
what kind of year was this? Just trying to get
sorry.
what kind of year was this? Is 1990, 95?
Yeah, absolutely. 1999.
Because what I'm trying to say is it's that my hope is that the world has evolved and changed, and how
Yeah.
it's almost people's feelings and perceptions that it's something I always feel as well, is where you don't want to be
Mm,
a burden on someone else, so you often put yourself at a detriment unfairly. And
absolutely.
it's that element of where hopefully the world has improved over time. And I was just interested to put a timestamp on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it was 1999. But again, this is all on me. I'm sure my employer would have supported me through it. But I was conscious because I had a managerial role, and I was conscious I was taking a bit too much time off. And within myself, I was beating myself up about it, but I couldn't help it. So I gave up my job. I needed a better way to manage my disability because of the chronic fatigue and all the bits and all the issues I was having as well. So in early 2000, I decided to set up in business. And the internet was always an interest of mine. A lot of people think that I studied computer science. I didn't. I taught myself web design. So back in early 2000, and
Mhm.
I came up with the idea of actually setting up a website where people could sell their properties online. So does that ring a bell? Right move? Not me, by the way. But I came up with the idea and concept of Rightmove back then. It was called housesonline.com, and I developed it. I had a student from Leicester University help me to actually develop the database because I couldn't program, and we launched it mid 2000.
Wow.
Um, I contacted the local newspaper, Leicester Mercury, who thought it was a phenomenal idea. They loved it. But then 2 weeks later, then got back to me and basically said, no, that we can't support this because all the estate agents that are advertising with us possibly won't like us advertising online. So I was then, obviously then I was devastated. I'd actually used up all my money. I was completely broke. I'd been to the bank as well. The bank had actually said no to actually giving me more
Wow.
money. And in a nutshell, the venture failed completely. So I was in a situation whereby I was obviously I couldn't work, technically couldn't work. But also I'd actually blown all our savings as well. And by then we also had a young child. So I was then thinking, okay, what do I do now? So I started to explore ways in which I could promote or market this
Hmm.
website with a very limited budget. So that's when I came across search engine optimization, SEO. So I taught myself SEO. I got the website. I got Houses Online to the top of the search engines. Back then, Google was just starting off, and I wish I bought shares then. Honestly, and within about 2 months, because then it was so easy back then, it was at the top of the search engines, but then it still wasn't gaining any traction because again, it was a very new concept. It was way before its time. So then I was then thinking to myself, okay, what can I do now? So this was late. This was actually interesting enough, was actually November 2000. I was
Wow.
thinking to myself, what do I do now? Do I go down the web design route? the web design market then was actually getting quite busy, it's getting a bit saturated, or SEO. No one actually was doing SEO back then. Hardly
Hmm.
any companies were doing SEO. So I decided to go down the road less traveled, as you would say, a bit risky. And the way I did it, because I was technically housebound, is I contacted 4 companies and I said to them that I'll get you to the top of the search engines, but all I need is a testimonial.
Hmm.
Equipped with those testimonials, that probably took me a month or two. Equipped with those testimonials, I approached another subset of companies, but this time I said to them that I'll get you to the top of the search engines, but don't pay me until you get results.
Wow.
And that's how I scaled up my business very, very quickly. And you know what's interesting, Steve? During that time, that when I was doing, like, it was called no placement, no fee SEO, only one person ever defaulted.
Wow.
Seriously. And I did that for about 5, 6 years. And I've worked for The Guardian, Avra, I don't think Avra's still around. Amstrad was one of my
Hmm.
clients. So I had some big brands on board. And that's how I scaled up my first company
Because
very,
I must
very
say,
quickly.
you also timed it perfectly with the growth in search engines.
Absolutely.
Because so much of
Absolutely.
a business strategy is timing, that now a lot of people are talking about AI and that kind of thing. It's being able to catch the wave as it's going up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's and again, I think that's what, and that for me is, I don't like saturated markets. I prefer niche markets. I prefer sometimes to take that extra risk and putting that extra effort into a
Hmm.
market that's actually that's kind of that's kind of hasn't been discovered yet. So that's exactly what I did with my second company, which I've now sold, is actually based in Bournemouth. Is In 2004, I decided to go into web hosting. There were a few web hosting companies around back then, but no one was offering free web hosting. And everyone said I was absolutely bonkers to actually do it. But I said, no, this is what we're going to do. So I set up the company called freevirtualservice.com, and we offered completely free web hosting. First company in the UK to offer completely free web hosting.
Wow.
And the way I sold it was, again, it's a very simple concept. But I said, you can have absolutely everything. You can have your databases, you can have emails, but the only thing we're going to limit is your bandwidth. That's the amount of traffic
Hmm.
that's going to come into the website. So we limited it to, I think it was about 50 megabits back then, or 100. And and again, it turned out to be a very, very popular service, because people could actually host for free.
Hmm.
They could try new ideas, they could try new concepts, without any risk to themselves, or new businesses without any risk to themselves. And when they then got busy, they can just upgrade.
It is very
And
clever.
that's how
What?
skilled on that one. So you say, gone.
No, no. But what I love, it's the sorry, my throat's a bit sore.
That's okay.
It's the entrepreneurial mindset where, regardless of change or challenge, it's
Absolutely.
how actually, okay, we could do this, we could do that. The ability to almost identify opportunity and pivot and navigate. It's a really key thing that you often see in a lot of entrepreneurs, that
Yeah.
actually things can happen which aren't ideal, and rather than just
Mm,
let it stop you.
that's right.
So what happened in the next 19 years up until, I guess, 2023?
Next 30 years, lots of other businesses that I kind of that I got involved in. Obviously, some of them didn't work, some of them failed. Because at the end of the day, failure to me is part of learning, and I personally embrace failure. But then I set up another company called Tiacom. That one I did. I think that one had lots of different little ventures on there. I think one of them was like an online children's selling children's designer clothes online. Also did some herbal products with that one as well. Did that for about 4 or 5 years. Then set up. Then I've got a property investment company that I set up.
Wow.
Now, that again, that's still there, but that's just providing like a passive income more than anything else. But just generally bits and pieces. Got involved with the Disability Confident campaign back in 2012 when it was first launched. I was one of 3 disabled entrepreneurs invited to meet David Cameron. So since then, it's something that I've been actively promoting in terms of obviously disability
Hmm.
inclusion, because I'm very passionate about getting more disabled people into work. But most importantly now is actually trying to get more disabled people into business,
Hmm.
because the barriers to business, the barriers to entry are just so high for disabled people.
Yeah.
So yes, in a nutshell, that's why, obviously now, as I said, this is more like my third life, is now I'm actually more of a social entrepreneur. So I've got two social enterprises. The first one I set up 4 years ago called Access Rating. With Access Rating, we set up an app which allows disabled people to submit disabled access reviews on every single public venue within the UK.
Oh, cool.
And again, the way we generate income is by offering disabled access audits. So I've got a partner who's a disabled access auditor, and we do disabled access audits all over the country. And one of our clients is the Wildlife Trust. Got some other big names as well that we're working for. But what we then did was, well, what we then do, or do not did do, is we then reinvest that money into a work placement scheme for disabled children, young adults,
Hmm.
because we know ourselves as disabled students, how difficult it was to get work placement. It's either you don't get one, or you're the last person. So we set up like an employment workup, but with a twist. The employer delivers the work placement to the students at the college.
Got you.
So we set up a remote office within the premises, and it's delivered to the students obviously in a friendly and secure environment, whereby they've got access to all the facilities that they need, so they don't have to worry about access needs, toiletry and stuff like that. They've got their personal
Hmm.
assistants and everything. It's all there.
Oh,
So,
cool.
so that's yeah. So that's that first enterprise, social enterprise. Then my second one is called Ability Connect. So I'm working with Leicester Business School. We've come up with a training program to equip, for want of a better word, disabled entrepreneurs, aspiring disabled entrepreneurs, with some of the core competencies and skills that they need to be successful in business. It sounds like giving them a bit of a jump start, or a bit of a head start in business,
You
or
like to
trying
keep
to.
yourself busy, I think, is the.
Yeah, a bit too busy, Steve. A bit too busy.
But I get the feeling that you're someone that likes to give back. You like to get involved in the community, and almost, I think
So
that's nice. I think in many ways that's at least where I get a lot of my fulfillment from. It's not so much about financial stuff
that's
anymore. It's about that kind of thing, which is very cool. So by the sounds of it, especially with your second social enterprise, which is incredible, just to say that. But
okay.
why do you feel it's almost important? I say just in generally, but also for disabled people, about business education and training and skills.
But for me, I think it's almost non-existent. Like when I started off back in 2000, I just thought it was a sign of the times back then that there was actually no support whatsoever. But fast forward now, 23 years
Hmm.
on, there still isn't any support out there. It's fragmented. There's bits and pieces all over the place, but it's
Hmm.
actually very fragmented. But most importantly is business education. And in terms of, okay, like that simple stuff, financial planning, business innovation, digital marketing. Those are some of the things that we cover. We've also covered resilience, having that resilient mindset as an entrepreneur as well.
Hmm.
So it's a real shame that there's actually very little out there for disabled people wanting to start up in business. And again, it's not just about them. Obviously, sometimes, just by just having that basic education or that intro, it doesn't mean that they're going to go into business.
Hmm.
It could be that they actually might decide that they might want to go back to education, because it might have sparked an interest in, like, for instance, within digital marketing.
I completely agree, because one of the things that I found growing up is, so I was from a working class background
Yeah.
in Liverpool, but I think you often, one of the biggest barriers, as well as the physical barrier of there not being the support available, it's when people don't see or even imagine that they could do certain things. So when you mentioned
So,
about Amstrad before, so when I interviewed David Gordon on Thursday,
yeah.
we were talking about books, and actually it was do you remember the old Alan Sugar book? It was bright purple. It was like that thick. I
That's
remember
right.
reading it at like 15, 16, 17. And it was almost what you arguably need is the visibility on people like you, like me, like other people who've gone on to do stuff. And
Mm.
then nowadays with the internet, which obviously you kind of were involved with early doors, is just to be able to go, well, if Mark did that and Steve did that, maybe I could do that. And it's almost that awareness that other people can do things as much as the physical barrier themselves. But I completely agree with you that
Yeah,
the
no, you're absolutely right there, Steve, because the society, to interject there, because one of the things that we're doing with the young students is also we're looking to educate their parents as well. Because their parents actually think, obviously, because they're disabled, that obviously the opportunities are actually very limited. But what we're doing is we're broadening their horizons and actually educating the parents as well. So therefore, they can actually, for want of a better word, probably push their children to either become a professional or to set up in business.
yeah, I must say, because my next question was going to be, why do
Yes,
you
so
feel? Don't worry, it's fine. And why do you feel that we don't see more, say, disabled entrepreneurs?
again, I think it's actually mainly because the system hasn't been set up to encourage entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
Very little is done. Is that when you look at some of the younger students, they're more inclined to go into more of the professionals, like
Hmm.
want to, or just like a normal job. And again, it's that lack of understanding as well, or lack of awareness.
Because do you think some of
For,
that comes from the fact that most teachers
mm,
followed an employed route? So obviously, they obviously went to school, probably went to uni, did a PGCC, then went back to school, and they
yeah.
don't know what it's like to start a business or whichever.
They don't even know the basics. And like one of the things that we're looking at and obviously wanting to start up is to set up like an entrepreneurship program so that, so therefore we can actually start introducing some of the students to what it's like, or in terms of the ideas of actually being an entrepreneur. Because as a disabled person, it just gives you so much flexibility
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
in terms of actually managing your condition. And again, it's that sense of self fulfillment as well. Is actually being your own boss and actually holding your own fate in your hands
Hmm.
as well.
I know one of the most popular, because my startup, we do a little bit with the Prince's Trust as well. And one of the big things that they obviously really popular is the mentorship program, but it's talks from speakers to share their story. And one
So
of the things that I guess we're doing right now, it's that element of where if you went back arguably pre-pandemic, or at least 4 or 5 years ago,
yes,
most events were still in person. And ironically, in Newcastle, a lot of business events have now gone back to in person stuff. Like my wife has one tonight. But
yeah,
the thing that I dislike about that is that limits access to those events. So,
it
for
doesn't.
instance, the one that my wife's going to is in a venue in central Newcastle tonight, and it's from the lady that makes the costumes on Strictly Come Dancing. So it's one that
Okay,
actually, on many different levels, people would be interested to go to. But I would imagine that if you had partial mobility, or you couldn't drive, or you pick anything, you can't go to it. And therefore, what you're doing is actually excluding people through your conscious choices. Does that make sense? As where part of
yeah,
the reason why I love to do podcasts and live streams is that as long as you've got one of these, which 87% of people in the world do now, if you want to, you can listen to your story and someone else's. And I think often the way that the world is evolving, I guess it opens up the opportunity for entrepreneurs like yourself who are conscious to make conscious choices, can open up
indeed.
more doors. But it's
No,
still
no,
very cool that you choose to spend your time to support others, because you don't have to. You could just solely run a 100% kind of commercial organization. So I need to ask you, so Purple Sock Day,
oh, purple socks. I love purple socks.
how did you get involved and almost find out about it?
Well, it was actually through Andrew Douglas. I think he approached me about 2, 3 years ago and was telling me about purple socks. And I was fascinated because, again, for me, it was just fell in quite well in terms of what I'm doing now with Ability Connect, in terms of helping disabled entrepreneurs. Because before Ability Connect, I was setting up a charity called the Circle Foundation. and Andrew was actually one of the trustees. Unfortunately, we couldn't get through the charity commission, so that's a different story. But that's how I got involved in it, and to me, as I said, I was very passionate about it. So the fact that we could use that first of all to celebrate the International Day of Disabled People, but most important, raise awareness to actually raise awareness that that they that people can actually use that to support disabled entrepreneurs as well.
No, I was similar that when I first, so there's a lady called Kat Paler-Bent that runs a seated towing business up here in the Northeast, and it was through Kat that she introduced me to Andrew and what the team were trying to do, and I kind of instantly got it. And it's almost, for me, like I always talk about this almost in every interview, but I was in Cubs and Scouts growing up, so, and it's always about just do your best. I don't mind if it fails or whichever, but actually, you're trying to do good stuff. I'm trying to do good stuff. Andrew's. And it's almost, I like to work with people and support them as much as I can. And it was just, so when, and thank you for your time again today, it was almost that when we had the chance to speak to guests and almost share their stories, I have this studio and it was like, well, actually, I know how to broadcast, but also as a way to help promote your business and what they do. And for me, it's almost business in 2023 and beyond is about finding those links and partnerships where you have your double or triple bottom line, where you still have the commercial return on investment and stuff. But actually there's other benefits too. And what's been interesting is my own journey on learning and discovering more as I've gone on. And even things like web accessibility, when we talk about the internet, there's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down. But what it really kind of gets me is that when companies or businesses choose not to explore avenues to make things accessible, be it physical accessibility, what you said before, or vice versa. So I just think it's really kind of cool.
No, it is indeed. Sorry, was there a question there, Steve?
No, it wasn't a definitive question. It was just more just talking about the organization and what they do and how they kind of get involved. So how can people find out more about you and your organizations, and how can they get in touch?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Just look under Mark Esho, ESHO. TikTok, Mark.Esho. Instagram, again, Mark.Esho. I'm on Twitter, but I don't do much Twitter. I don't know, it's one of those platforms I never really taken to. After Twitter, well, obviously it's now called X now, isn't it? But those are the three ways which I can obviously be contacted. Also, the Ability Connect website, which is abilityconnect.co.uk. You can actually go on there. You can then send me, there's a form there. You can actually fill in a form, or you can go to the Access Rating website, which is accessrating.com, and you'll find information on there as well.
Oh, cool. Just before we go, if you were to give advice to young entrepreneurs, they could be disabled or not, it doesn't really matter. What would it be? Because obviously you've had such an incredible journey yourself.
Yes.
That actually, you said yourself about how some businesses worked maybe better than others. But what advice, if someone came to you today and said, I'm really interested in starting my first business, have you got any tips? What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, I'd actually say what they need is do lots of research. I think research to me is key, and I'm very biased towards niche businesses more than anything else, and not to go into saturated markets, but most importantly, to really understand their customers. Often people just go into business, they just think, oh, it could work because so-so is doing it, or that person is doing it. But you need to really understand the psyche of your customers in terms of what you're going to be delivering to them. Also, as well, embrace failure. Use that, because a lot of people, again, I think they're worried about their business failing, what people might think. Who cares? You need to use that as a stepping stone to actually use that. You need to learn from your mistakes in order to actually move forward. And thirdly, is basically never ever give up. You've got to really persevere. Because running the business is hard. It's a lot harder than actually working. There's lots of times where I wish I had a job, back in the day. But you never give up. You just keep on trying, keep on experimenting. Basically broaden your horizons, and also seek support, because as I said, there's bits, pockets of support out there, like what you're doing, what I'm doing as well. There are people that that you can actually reach out to. And lastly, get yourself a mentor.
I think all fantastic advice, and actually advice for life, not just for business as well.
Yeah, it's very
That,
much so.
we all have different challenges that come up and come and go and that kind of thing. And you are completely right. It is the easier option is to get a job.
Mm,
But certain personality traits, which you definitely have, and hopefully I have as well, it's people that want the challenge. They want to push themselves and see what they can do, and then
absolutely.
likewise, hopefully give back as well. Because if you do decide to go that entrepreneurship route, you can create opportunity and you can change the world for other people as well, which you
Absolutely.
can't always do if you work for someone else. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. Genuinely, I've really enjoyed it. In the link, I will put all the links to both Purple Sock Day and Buying Socks, but also all of Mark's kind of really cool stuff as well. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and I'm sure we'll
Okay,
speak soon.
great talking to you.
No worries. Cheers, Mark. Thank you. Bye bye.